Coming up next.
Is there a friendly rivalry with police officers?
Yeah, there's a, I would call it a sibling rivalry, maybe. Yeah, definitely there is. It's really healthy, the police and EMS. There's a mutual respect, but there's also there's a lot of chirping going on between the three services. It's fun. Let's put it that way. It's a lot of fun.
The Job Talk podcast shares stories from people who are passionate and love what they do in their careers. Through conversation, we explore their careers, past work experiences, and the education that got them to where they are now. We are putting together a Career Crisis Ultimate interview series. We are asking experts to give their best advice and guidance around work anxiety, career pressures, career goal setting, and ultimately, career transformation. To learn more about this special interview series and get notified when it's available, please visit our webpage at thejobtalk.com/help.
Today's guest is Kevin Royle. Here's our Job Talk with a firefighter. Kevin, you becoming a firefighter, did that fulfill a childhood dream?
Nope. No, firefighting was one of those, I was actually on a completely different career path. Blew all my money on a different education, and just life changes. I started a family and realized that the path I was going down wasn't necessarily conducive to starting a family. So I started looking around, and then I met guys that were on the department, and I had friends that were going through the process, and I actually had a boxing coach who had always told me, hey, you need to look at this as a career. And once I made that decision to start a family and look at a different career path, it was a pretty easy choice, just based on what I'd wanted to do, serving communities and just doing something that I thought was, worthy.
Yeah. What career path were you looking at when you were trying to decide?
I was involved in restaurant and hotel management, and I was in the process of starting my own place. And then I realized, you know what? This probably isn't the best way to best occupation for wanting to have a family too.
Yeah. What was your boxing career like? How did you do?
I boxed for like 14 years. I was from just a young guy all the way up into my late 20s. It was good. I boxed for province of Alberta and had some international competitions. I never went pro. I never had the desire to go pro. I just liked the competition, so I was able to travel around a lot of places, and it actually moved into MMA a bit too. So I moved into like an MMA coaching, and as an agent as well, I worked. So.
Oh, wow. Okay. So how old were you when you decided to pursue firefighting and apply for that?
I was 28 when I decided that I was going to make the jump into try to get to the fire service.
28 years old. Do you think that's about the median age, or is that older for people getting into firefighting?
No, not really. There's some guys that, have that childhood dream. They start at it right out of high school. I think most departments look for some life experience and some, you have to build up your prerequisites for whatever department you're trying to join. I think there's guys as young as 21, even younger. And then there's guys that we have some recent recruits that are in their 40s right now that are just getting onto the floor. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the process of becoming a firefighter. Mm-hmm. How do you apply? And then let's get into what the training's like.
Right. Well, I guess it's one of the biggest things to understand is that there's so many different types of departments throughout Canada, and the prerequisites they vary from province to province, community to community, county to county. So we have volunteer departments that are pure volunteer. We have volunteer paid on call departments where the volunteer firefighters are paid when they're actually at an event. And then they usually have a paid chief, a deputy chief, and maybe some other administrative people that are paid with an annual salary. And then you have your professional fire services. So, and then within professional fire services, you also have integrated services. So, for instance, my department, Edmonton, is solely fire. We have some medical training, but a community like St. Albert has an integrated service. So they also man the ambulances in their community. So those are things to keep in mind whenever you're looking to apply to a fire service. So I don't know if you need to be a paramedic to get onto an integrated service, or at least an EMT, but a department like Edmonton, you don't need to be a paramedic or an EMT, but they do have a minimum level of medical training that you have to acquire, and those things can change from year to year with the recruitment process.
What was your favorite part of training?
There's so many things that are, I mean, like I'm a hands-on guy, so I like working with tools. I like learning all the time. So I love learning about the medical component of our job. There's nothing better than getting on a hose and getting to do live fire evolutions. But there's also the camaraderie you build with your troop mates. That's pretty awesome as well. So, I mean, I spent some time in the military previous to my career with the fire service. So, it's reminiscent of that too. Basic training and doing your QL trainings and stuff like that. So, I enjoy training. Period. So.
Do they, when you're going through training to be a firefighter, are they covering everything? Like, how is the driving side of things? Do they run you through a course when you're driving the truck? Yeah.
Well, I guess another thing to understand is there's basically your firefighting education's covered by NFPA, National Fire Protection Association. And so you develop these courses over time. Your 1001s are your ticket or your diploma to fight fire as a structural firefighter. And then you start getting different courses for driving and apparatus operation. There's different types of apparatus operation. There's different courses that allow you to become a trainer, to teach NFPA courses. So it's all career progression. And again, depending on the community that you're in, they'll have different, different portfolios or different job titles or job descriptions within the service. Canadian services tend to have well-rounded firefighters that don't just drive or don't just go on a nozzle. Whereas you get into the United States and a lot of those firefighters will spend a career or a large portion of their career just driving or just on the nozzle. And it's almost like to become an engineer or an operator is kind of a complete change or a complete promotion or something, I guess you could call it. Whereas in my service and most of the services in Canada, the professional services, you can spend a short period of time, like a block of shifts as a driver, and then a block of shifts as a firefighter and medical attendants. So, yeah.
How did you find the theory side?
Well, you don't go in cold with no knowledge typically. So, again, I'm going to refer to Edmonton because that's what I'm familiar with. I had to have, at the time was EMR, Emergency Medical Responder, that was governed by the Alberta College of Paramedics. That's since changed. It's now a different medical background training that you have to have. So you go in and you've done this course, and so you have a basic knowledge of anatomy and pharmacology and just your best practices. And you come in and then you're trained to the Edmonton standards. And again, that's going to change community to community. So, but again, Edmonton, they actually provided us with our NFPA 1001s. They have their own training college, which is not very common, I don't believe, throughout Canada. So a lot of departments will require you to go to a fire college like Vermilion or something like that. I think Hinton's also got a college now. So you can go to these places, get your firefighter 1001s, because the community doesn't have the ability to train their firefighters and certify their firefighters. So with Edmonton, we had a background, but then we were also provided a lot of training.
And how long is the training? And then let's talk about once you graduate, entering being a firefighter.
Yeah, again, I'm not sure the duration of the fire colleges. A lot of these are programs that vary in length, depending on the length of the days and stuff like that. You could also get your 1001s by going through a volunteer department and doing almost like a distance learning or spending some time with in training with the classes and stuff like that, or the department, to acquire your 1001s. In Edmonton, it took, I think, once you've done all your prerequisites, so your you're a few weeks and doing your medical training at the very least. You're then required to go do driving tests and driving exams. Then you're training with Edmonton's a few months to get your 1001s of full-time training. I think it's 2 months before you hit the floor as a probational firefighter. And then there's continuous on-the-job training and continuous development. For instance, you don't start driving an apparatus until minimum 2 years. And then there's, again, several day training program on just the driving, and then several days on the pump panel operations. So the operations on the engineering side of things. Again,
yeah. Sorry to interrupt you there. You talked about you're continuing to learn throughout your career as a firefighter. Do you specialize into different roles as a firefighter?
You can, yeah.
Okay.
You can. Within Edmonton and most large municipalities, they'll have branches that deal with hazmat training, technical rescue. So that's your ropes rescues, high angle, specialized water rescue. You'll have investigations, prevention. Those are the kind of the main specialties that can exist within a department. So you can.
And have you specialized in any of these as well?
Yeah, I specialized in investigations. So I received my level A safety codes officer training. And again, that's continuous training. You're learning about arc mapping or accelerants. And there's a lot of different aspects of the investigation process that you just continually learn, and new information, new sciences become, new theory becomes available. So you're always learning new things in that branch, just as you would in the hazmat training or the technical rescue. New equipment comes available, or new ideas.
When you're not on an emergency call, what are you guys doing when you're not actually at a car accident scene or a fire?
Contrary to popular belief, we're not just sleeping or working out. We're constantly training. Well, for instance, right now we're doing mental health training. Right now, I was just doing that last night. But we have a lot of training that we're constantly, we're always upgrading or maintaining our proficiencies with CPR or new practices in trauma rescue. Just within the last few years, we rolled out a new deadly bleed program to help control, deadly bleeds, right? So the use of tourniquets and hemostatic gauzes and stuff like that have become available to us and added to our scope. So we're constantly learning new techniques on things.
Is there a friendly rivalry with police officers?
Yeah, there's a, I would call it a sibling rivalry, maybe. Yeah, definitely there is.
Can you talk about some of the experiences you've had with police?
It's really healthy. The police and EMS, there's a mutual respect, but there's also, how do you want to, there's a lot of chirping going on between the three services. I think we're the, how do you say? Yeah, I don't know. It's fun. Let's put it that way. It's a lot of fun.
My brother-in-law is a police officer, so I've heard his side of things. It sounds like it can get quite heated in corporate challenge when you guys are competing in sports against them.
Yeah, it can. Yeah, it definitely can. Yeah. I know the
All right. So obviously, if you're a firefighter, it's kind of like a family situation. Are you assigned to a fire station and that becomes your family? You guys are living there when you're on call?
Yeah. And again, municipalities or communities, the U.S. has very differing situations. But yeah, we have 30 stations in Edmonton. You're usually there anywhere between 2 and 5 years at a fire hall but as attrition or as people retire, as people are promoted, there is a constant reshuffling of your staff. So you can get transferred to a different hall based on the operational needs of the department. Right. So, yeah, you're typically at a hall for a few years, and you develop, close bonds with the guys you work with, and you do live within that hall, and you have responsibilities that each, you rely on each one of your crew to help you with. But yeah, definitely.
How do you find the shift work? And can you tell us what your schedule is like?
Yeah, as a young guy, it was fine. As I get older, I find it just certain. You know what? You don't bounce back from rough nights as easy as you do when you're in your 30s or your 20s. But we in Edmonton, again, it's our schedule. Calgary's is different, for instance, but we work 2 10-hour days, then we work 2 14-hour nights. We get 2 days off, and then we go back to 2 10-hour days, 2 14-hour nights, and then we get 6 off. So it's a little, it equates to more than a 40-hour work week.
Yeah, I could imagine if you have a family that could get a little tricky.
Pros and cons. You know, I'm afforded a lot of time with my family, so yeah, you can end up with missing some family events or special holidays, but I also I'm afforded a lot of time to spend with them. So,
what do you like best about being a firefighter?
Community involvement, community service. The community service has always been something that I've always enjoyed. That's why I went into the military. That's why I've focused a lot on volunteer work. But yeah, it's definitely the community service, and then also some of those other inducements. I mean, it's a very secure job. The pension is something that you can't deny being an inducement that that attracts people, but also the time I get with my family. So for me, it's a great occupation. The great balance of your professional life, your personal life, and then we're not going to be rich off firefighting, but we're rich in other ways.
Is there anything that you wish you knew before you joined the fire department?
You know what? The only thing I wish is I would have done it sooner. I wish I would have done it sooner in my life. That's really the only thing I wish about my career.
And do you have any advice that you could give to somebody that is just applying to go through the process?
Yeah, like every community is different. You got to make the decision. Are you willing to relocate? Do you want to be a paramedic and work in an integrated department? Are you happy being a volunteer firefighter that's paid on call so you can pursue your trade or your degree or something like that, or your profession in another area? Because again, that's equally just as fulfilling in a lot of ways as professional firefighting. But I guess the biggest piece of advice would be go to your community's website and find out what the prerequisites are, because those are going to differ. Go to that website, find out what you need to do. And usually it's spelled out very, very clear. And the other thing is start knocking on the doors of the fire halls. Those are the best guys to give you the advice on, what the climate's like within the department right now, and what the recruitment process is. You might get lucky and meet a guy that's the rookie of the hall, and he can tell you exactly what's going on with the current process, and you'll get the most honest answers from the fire hall. And I've never heard of a fire hall turn anyone away that wants to be a firefighter, that wants to get some answers and get some advice.
Kevin, you get a lot of calls, and as a firefighter, you see a lot of traumatic things. Can you talk about some of your experiences around that, and what kind of support do firefighters have in dealing with some of the things that you've seen?
That's a great question. That's a common question. People always want to know what's the grossest call, the goriest call, or the sickest call you ever saw. And some people got to realize that when they ask that question, you're asking a first responder.
Yeah.
Sorry. You're asking us first responder to relive some traumatic times for them too, right? They can be pulling victims from houses. They can be attending bad car crashes. They can be, so when people ask those questions, they got to realize what they're asking of a soldier, of a police officer, of a firefighter, of a medic. And a lot of things, reliving those traumatic events are what contribute to PTSD. I've been to some stuff that no one should see. I mean, I don't think that can be said of any person who's got any length of a career, right? And it doesn't take long. I've been to suicides. I've been to, like I said, drunk driving accidents that should never have happened. And, when you arrive on those scenes, you're trained to deal with it. So you just do it. And the debriefing and the The post, I guess, they do have resources, but it's all new. A lot of stuff didn't exist even when I got on the job just over a decade ago. And it was even less, for a lot of the retired captains and stuff. And thankfully, though, our city has been very, very proactive in developing new programs to deal with PTSD. Like I said, I'm in the middle of a before occupational stress boss training right now, and they're constantly looking for new resources to help people deal with PTSD, with the addictions that can come from trying to deal with PTSD. They're trying to help us deal with coping measures and finding, creating peer support teams. They're doing a great job, in my opinion, of developing these things now, or, they didn't exist a short time ago. And the recognition of what those stressors can place upon emergency responders is tremendous.
I think a society as a whole is taking mental health more serious now. Anyway, we live in an age, because I'm sure that in your industry, there's some old school firefighters that would just say, tough it out.
Yeah. And most of them are gone. And most of them in those old guys, man, they bought into the training. They realized it too. And, it wasn't tough to get buy-in. That's for sure. When people saw what it was doing to help out, it was pretty huge.
Yeah.
The resources are definitely welcomed, and it's helped break down those stigmas or those stereotypes of people that might be dealing with something, and recognizing those things before they become a huge issue. Having a peer support team and having people recognize those things, and, being able to reach out being able to reach out and actually knowing where to find the support is pretty huge. Pretty huge.
Traditionally, firefighting was male dominated. How has it been evolving?
Well, structural firefighting. Yeah, you'd be right, correct in that statement. In previous years, firefighting was a male dominated industry, but there's been a lot of work. There's been a lot of fantastic female firefighters that came before me. I've been able to work under chiefs that were female, captains that were female, and they were amazing. And we have a number of new recruits and junior firefighters and all up through the ranks that are female. We actually have quite a few in our department. It's changing. There are definitely more females that are looking at firefighting as a career. And I think if you ask them, they would tell you that it's been just as great for them as it is for us. There's opportunity there. There is, they're not judged because they're female. You'll get judged in the fire department, but it's on your work ethic and your team skills, right? Not because of your gender or your race or your religious beliefs or your anything like that, your sexual orientation. The fire department is very welcoming. The fire community, it's a brother and a sisterhood, and it is definitely changing.
Let's talk about the lighter side, some of the more comical calls that you've been to. Can you share any of those stories?
Yeah, I've been to plenty of cats in the trees, and I've never seen a cat skeleton. I'm probably sure none of your viewers or listeners have ever seen a cat skeleton. There have been a few of those. When I was a rookie, actually, I went up into a tree to get a cat, scratch me, and then jumped to the tree and fell down and ran off. And all these people were watching. Thank God there was no cell phone, because it was like a great save, right? I've been to ducks on the pond. People wanted us to come save some ducks that were on a pond because they're worried the water was going to freeze. Oh man, I was just a few blocks ago, had to crawl in through a second floor window because there was two people were doing a webcam type interaction, and one of them fell getting out of their clothes and ended up being knocked out. So that was interesting when you come face to face with someone. That was interesting. But yeah, there's a lot of fun calls too that you just giggle about afterwards. And
So there's some nudity involved in your industry.
There can be. Yes. Yes. You know.
Do you guys have a fire pole in your fire hall still?
Not in our hall. There's actually one, Station 10 still have them, but like, I don't know, it's OH&S or something doesn't want to slide down a pole and twist an ankle, so we're all hoping for slides with a ball pit at the bottom of it or something like that.
Okay, enough with that. You have some humanitarian work that you do. Could you talk to us and plug that? Tell us all about what you're doing.
Yeah, so like it was about 10 years ago, I was lucky enough to be selected to be a member of a group study exchange to Ukraine. There's a Rotary group study exchange. And I was selected as a fire contingency because it was focused on emergency services. So I was able to go to Ukraine, tour around the entire country, and see what it was like over there. And back then it was archaic. We were talking trucks that were still from the Soviet era, guys with no bunker gear, like buildings were crumbling. Like they were in need of help. So when I came back to Canada, we were going through a gear swap out. So I went to my chief and I asked him if I could get some of this gear that they were just going to dispose of. And he just told me to write a business plan, tell me why I should do it. How are you going to do it? So I did. And then we created Firefighter Aid Ukraine. And it just snowballed from there. And we started getting equipment from all over, from different agencies, different cities, different departments. And it quickly turned not just to Ukraine, but into other countries too, because we started finding homes for equipment that Ukraine couldn't use, but it could be used in like Syria, for instance. During their civil war, we were sending some medical supplies there. We had stuff that wasn't compatible over there, so we sent it to like India and Cuba, and worked with another organization sending stuff to Lamont and the Philippines. And we just, it went well. Everything was going to plan, and everything was going well. So we just continued doing it. And then the war broke out in Ukraine, and we didn't stop. We were still in the middle of doing it. So we shifted gears and we started shipping more equipment over. We shipped over, it's over 200 tons of equipment now to Ukraine, over 109, I think, since the war started. And it's all PPE, medical equipment like X-ray machines and intubators and ultrasound machines and jaws of life, and you name it. We're shipping over anything that's high value rescue equipment or hospital equipment. And we're still doing that now. And it's afforded me a lot of great opportunities to meet people around the world and see a lot of great places and develop some fantastic relationships. So, if any of your listeners want to go to firefighteraidukraine.com, they can learn more about our program. They can even make a donation there. They can find us on social media, on Facebook. Firefighter Aid Ukraine is the page, and they can see what we've done in the past and find out what we're doing in the future.
Can you talk about the support that you've had for Firefighter Aid Ukraine?
Yeah, the project initially got greenlit by our then chief, Ken Block, and I had the support of some deputy chiefs that really played a critical role in that. One of the chiefs moved on to Leduc, and the other chief moved out to Canmore. Still great contact with them. But, we've had great support from Alberta Health Services. We've had great support from City Council. But, our current administration's been tremendously supportive, especially in light of what's going on in Ukraine right now. So I can't say enough about the support that I get, and from my brothers as well, my union. We've proven ourselves, and they just continue to support us in every way, shape, or form that they can. It's pretty great.
I guess we'll kind of conclude on this. Why would you tell somebody to become a firefighter?
I would tell someone to become a firefighter if community service, community involvement is something that they enjoy, or that means something to them, right? If becoming rich is, don't bother becoming a firefighter. But if you want to be live a full life, if you want to have a great balance between friends, family, professional life, it's a great thing to explore. There's many. It's one part of the emergency services: police, fire, EMS, even the military. They'll attract similar people, and we get to see things. We're always using our minds. We're always using our hands. We're always facing new challenges that that differ. So building camaraderie within your crew, it's pretty fulfilling. So if those things appeal to you, then you should explore fire or one of the other stepchildren of the emergency service.
Well said. Kevin, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and thank you for all the volunteer work that you do, the humanitarian efforts. We really appreciate it, and you're absolutely making a difference in this world. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to the Job Talk podcast. For more information, please visit us at thejobtalk.com. Our podcast music was created by our friend Mike Malone in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada.